these last 2 weeks. When has happened to Texas? When has happened to Oregon? My manager was affected. He was without power for 11 days. So it's a real thing. So it's great that you guys are all online to learn about preparedness, because that's what we really need to do. And it's really an honor just to do this class in conjunction with Acts of Mercy. Acts of Mercy is the disaster branch of the Antioch School of Antioch Church. And its vision mainly is to mobilize the church to engage and train and prepare in order to offer practical help in times of disaster, and to bring sustainable transformation to communities and all around the world. And that's exactly what we're doing here. As we're preparing, we're going to be able to help not only our families, but our communities, and even maybe eventually to other places in the world. So this is just awesome. So just thank you again for all you joining with us. Really excited to see all of you. And today we're going to have back with us Hugo Pia, and he's going to be assisting us with preparing just how to get prepared in terms of our homes and our families. Before we do that though, before I introduce him, I've got a couple of just housekeeping things. So just a quick reminder, I know all of you are aware of it because I know all of you are on Zoom all the time, but just for some Zoom etiquette, while Albert's presenting, if you could just keep yourselves on mute. And then at the end of the class, we're going to also have a breakout session. So maybe as we go through the class today, just kind of be thinking about something that that you could possibly work on for yourself, something that you'd like to grab a hold of and maybe focus on. So just as you're taking notes, if God is really putting something in your heart, just to really grab onto, make a note of that and jot that down, because we'll be going into breakout rooms to talk about that. Also for today, we're going to be raffling off some prizes. So I'm not going to tell you what prizes they are, but stay tuned and stay to the end, because we will definitely be raffling off some prizes. We're excited to do that. So without further ado, I'm going to present Albert. Albert's been with us. Actually, he's been with the fire services for the last 26 years, mainly between Ventura County and LA County. And so he has a wealth of knowledge in terms of how to really get prepared in terms of preparing for ourselves, for our families, just how to stay safe as well too. And so we're going to have Albert come on. And I just really love his passion about this subject. It really comes out when he speaks. So Albert, I'm going to let you have the floor here.
Good morning, everyone. So excited to see everybody here. And as Dennis shared, there's been a lot of things that have occurred, not only in our country but basically all over the world. This is going to be the second of a series of classes, and we're going to show a variety of different things to prepare yourselves, your family, whether at home, in the workplace, or it could be if you're able to attend church, or at school for some of you that may be able to be at school. And nevertheless, this is important information that you can incorporate today, and that will be useful for you to share with neighbors. And it really is our sincere hope that this will be a catalyst to wanting to get you to start maybe seeking further training and knowledge, like CERT training or EMT or something like that, where you can be able to share with others in your neighborhood, your community, or maybe even abroad. So LifeU class that we're going to talk about. We're going to show a quick video, just like what Dennis shared, which just occurred just recently in the state of Texas. Can you hear it? Are you guys able to hear that video? No, they're not.
Flooded. Grace White is live in Sugar Land tonight to show us what you can do. Grace?
Are you guys
Mia,
seeing
if
the
you're like
video?
me, you wrapped your pipes and you thought this would be good, but your pipes can actually still freeze and cause a big mess.
From apartments on the East Beltway to the ceiling in Cypress, the damage was done from Midtown to Missouri City.
The temperature started to come up a little bit. Yeah, the phones are ringing off the hook.
Joe Bainey with John Moore Plumbing has seen it all.
What we're dealing with now is hard ice inside of the pipe, and it had nowhere to go. And so it just keeps pushing on the pipe until it explodes.
The best advice, turn off your water or drip your faucets. If you keep the water moving, it's harder to freeze. And remember, if your pipes bust and you do call a plumber, road conditions and a rush on parts could affect response time.
Everything is going to be delayed, and understand if you do have a break that a plumber can get out there and make a solution for you, but that solution might not require same day fix.
One thing you want to find is your water main. It's usually on the side of your house. That way, if your pipes bust, you can turn off that water quickly before your house floods. Mia, back to you.
Anything to lessen the potential for damage. Grace White, thank you.
Okay, that video demonstrates one of the things that we covered for those of you that were able to attend the first class of knowing where your utilities are and how to shut them off. But don't get too worked up about it if you weren't able to see the first class. That will be made available at the Epicenter website. So if you weren't able to see it, you can at your own leisure be able to look at it and get that information. But she mentioned that the shutoffs are located on the side of the house. Maybe in Texas that's common. In California, usually those shutoffs are located in front of your house. But depending on the neighborhood you live in and the how old your particular house is, it may be a little different. But typically in California, you will find, or at least in Southern California, you will find those shutoffs in the front of your house. So now we're going to start into the beginning of our training. We're going to talk about home preparedness in the workplace. But when we say that, I'm not just referring it to be the home. You could be in work. You could be in school when we were able to still be in school. You could be en route somewhere to the grocery store, or you could even be in church for those of us that are still able to attend church. So it's in different locations, but we want to be prepared for a situation because we don't really know when that might occur. It's also important to note that this information is going to be a lot to cover, but this particular PowerPoint will be made accessible to you. But because of the constraints in time, some of it might seem like I buzzed on kind of quickly on it. Rest assured, I'm going to cover the main and key points, but you will at your own leisure be able to look at it. So we're going to talk about impact and hazard reduction in home. There's simple techniques that you can incorporate in your home that you can make it easy for yourself in the event that there's an earthquake or another type of an emergency, that it will make it easier for those people inside your house to be able to get out quickly or not be hurt by different things falling on them or walking over glass. Simply relocating mirrors or glass decorative pieces into different areas that are not in the path of egress in your doors, exits, or even windows, because sometimes it may not be a door that you're going to be exiting out of your home. You might have to go out through a different way. It may be a matter of anchoring or securing heavy pieces of furniture in a way that if there is an earthquake that they won't fall over, or even mitigating electrical hazards. Like what you see here in the slide is what we call an electrical octopus. It's something that we don't want to see because you're going to overrun that outlet and it could cause an electrical fire. With regards to impact reduction, there's also other things that we want to incorporate. Where you have flammable or combustible liquids, some cleaning supplies and stuff, it's important that we store them in a location that is the safest. So there's an acronym which is LIES. It stands for limit, isolate, eliminate, and separate. So when we say limit, you just want to limit the amount of supplies you have. For example, unless you're a painter, there's really no reason for you to have 10 gallons of paint thinner. So if you find yourself with an inordinate or an exorbitant amount of a particular item, really look into why you need it and if you really need it at all. When we're talking about isolate, there's particular products that you want to keep maybe under a certain room temperature, or you don't want them under direct sunlight or excessive heat. So whether that be in your garage or in a storage shed outside, you want to make sure that they're properly stored. You also want to isolate because there's also a potential that they may be exposed to some elements of the weather if they're not properly stored. In the event that you have more than you need, you want to eliminate it. You may have something in your garage that you stored for multiple years. And if you haven't used it, maybe it's a good opportunity for you to take advantage of your community or your city's hazardous materials reduction program and turn it into them so that it's disposed of properly. And also we're going to talk about separating because there's certain items or products, household items that you use for cleaning. For example, ammonia and bleach. You don't want to mix those two together because they produce a hazardous gas that could be harmful to you. On the right portion of that slide, you'll see there's other household items that you want to make sure that they don't get combined. So at your leisure, when you have an opportunity to look at this slide, you could look for yourself if you have some of these items in your household and make sure that they're not in proximity to each other and potentially come in contact. When preparing for a disaster, we also want to know what particular hazards that are local to the area you live in. If you happen, for example, to live in the Antelope Valley in the high desert of Palmdale, Lancaster, those areas are subject to thunderstorms and flooding. So then you might need to take certain measures to prevent your house from flooding or being subject to getting stranded in an area that you're traveling and potentially getting flooded. For example, if you live in the Los Angeles forest or somewhere in the brush interface, then there's potential that you're subject to the brush fires that we are frequently getting every year now. So you want to know what particular hazards in the area you live that you might be prone to. And you want to take into account ways to evacuate, routes of travel out. You want to consider the different elements that pertain to particular areas that you live in that you might be subject to. But just remember that you want to address those particular needs for the members of your household. Or again, like I mentioned before, this could be a situation where it is that you work in. Excuse me. We also want to make sure that we develop a disaster plan. What we talked about in the first class, we talked about a meeting place where your family, in the event of an earthquake or a fire, a safe refuge area in front of your home. Important to have an out-of-state contact. We live in Southern California, so this is an area that is subject to earthquakes. And as was also mentioned in the first class, experts are predicting a major earthquake of significant impact to this area. So if that happens, the ability to communicate within this region will be very limited. However, to be calling out of state, or in particular, maybe texting, would be much more likely to be able to happen. So it's a good idea to have an out-of-state contact. If your dad's at work and maybe he works in Orange County and you live in Pasadena and he's unable to communicate with you or let you know that he's safe or vice versa, having an out-of-state contact is really important because that individual can let you know, hey, dad's safe, he's in an office building, we're here at home. What a peace of mind to know that your loved ones are safe. So really good idea to have an out-of-state contact. It may be a situation where you might want to shelter in place, whether it be at home or in the workplace. But even if it's at home or in the workplace, do you have a way to get out? Routes of travel, if you're going over bridges or underpasses, may be completely compromised or inaccessible. So you make sure that you have alternate means of getting home or getting from some place that you're going to, that you frequent, because these particular ways that you generally travel may not be accessible to you in the event of a major earthquake. You want to know if you have transportation from the area that you're at. And these plans are great, but if you don't practice them, just like anything else, you want to make sure that everybody understands the plan and is comfortable with it and able to implement it. On a similar note, we can talk about an emergency escape plan. In the event in your particular house that suppose you're encountering a fire, maybe at home in the evening, especially, that you have in a way to escape. So what we want you guys to look in your home is to see if that every room you have two means of egress, two means of getting out. In most homes, you have probably at least two, a window and the door that you came in, and maybe you have more than one way to get in and get out. So you want to make sure that you look into that. You want to make sure that everybody in the household is able to unlock and open all the doors and windows that have that ability. If your house incorporates safety bars, that the people inside the home know how to unlock those safety bars. And if you have a multi-story structure that you live in, and you're in the second or third story, that you've invested in an escape ladder in the event you need to get out through a window, because getting out through the door is you're not able to do so. So these are things that you want to look into incorporating in your home, and making arrangements specifically for small children or elderly that are not as mobile. Maybe simply relocating them to the first floor rather than in the second floor would be a good plan of action for you to incorporate. Excuse me. So we're going to talk about some protective actions that you can do. You want to first assess your situation. What do you have? What do you got to deal with? What's the situation in the event of an emergency that you have to address? You want to decide if you need to change the location that you're in, or that you should stay in place. Is there a situation with the air not being harmful for you? In the event of one of these brush fires we had recently, the air around those areas was really harmful. So you want to make sure that there's ways that you maybe can protect your breathing. Closing your doors, not running your air conditioning. You can keep the air inside your home cleaner. If it's possible, for example, something was knocked over, a fluid or a liquid that may be harmful to inhale the vapors, can you remove those contaminants from that immediate area you're in? Or is it better for you to vacate that immediate area? And because of COVID, we're all kind of hygiene experts now. We're kind of been forced to make sure we practice good hygiene. When you come into contact with anything, make sure that you're cleaning properly, so you're not cross-contaminating a particular chemical or something that you don't want to come in contact with your skin or inhale with your lungs. We mentioned sheltering in place. So when we talk about sheltering in place, it may be a situation when you're sheltering inside the room that you're in, whether it be at home, in the workplace. You want to make sure you have some supplies in the event that does occur. It could be sheltering in place for a matter of hours, or it could be days, maybe even up to 2 weeks. You want to store emergency supplies in the event that does happen. And you want to make sure that you have at least some supplies that can sustain you for at least a couple of days if need be. When we are sheltering in place, we want to make sure that we're sealing potentially points where either fumes or something may come into your house. So your doorways, your windows, vents, or fans, ceiling fans that are taking air out of your house, those are points of entries that maybe contaminants can come in. So duct tape is a great tool to have. You can use plastic sheeting and covering all these openings to protect the interior of the home or the room that you're in. Also remember, some of us have chimneys at home, so you might want to also invest in getting enough plastic sheeting in the event something like that does occur. There's different items. I mean, we could overguess and overthink things, but some of the things that you want to consider in the event you need to incorporate a little area with significant important items that you want to make sure you take with you. A brush fire evacuation situation, an emergency supply kit, an out-of-state contact list. Remember, You may not have your actual cell phone. You may not have power in it. So most of us don't remember our friends' phone numbers, let alone their addresses. So it's a good idea to write this down because you may not have access to your cell phone. Cash and credit cards. In the event of an earthquake that is of major significance, you may not be able to use an ATM or pay with a credit card, but it's a good idea to have extra. Change of clothing, personal hygiene items, important items like family photos. It's a good idea maybe to scan them and put them in a flash drive. If you have young children, babies in the house, you want to be able to provide them with food and nourishment if they need it. People in your house that maybe need a wheelchair or a walker need that for being able to be mobile. You want to make sure you have items like that. And if you have pets, you want to make sure their needs are met too. So you want to have a leash, potentially a carrier cage, and maybe an identification and immunization. Because if you're going to a shelter, community shelter, and you're trying to bring a pet in, they're going to want to know if they've been vaccinated, and they may not allow you to have them in proximity to you. So it's things that we don't think about, but these little simple things, if you take measures before that you need them, in the event something like that does occur, that everybody in the family, and our pets are part of our family, right? We want to make sure that they're in close proximity to us. We talked about food supplies. We want to select, when we're trying to get supplies that we're going to have in the home or in the workplace, wherever that may be, that are not going to be perishable. We want to choose items that we don't have to refrigerate. Canned meats, canned fruits, canned vegetables, and soups are great. You want to also remember to have a non-electric can opener. High energy foods such as peanut butter, granola bars, and trail mix are a good idea to have. Dried fruit, non-perishable pasteurized milk, food for infants if that is the case in your particular family. Comfort foods, to help reduce stress. If some people really like chocolate, maybe a couple of chocolate bars might help reduce the stress level when you're encountering a certain situation that is difficult to be able to endure. Meals ready to eat are prepackaged, high-dried emergency supply kits that you can purchase. Some of those have a shelf life of 25 years. So those are good investments if you have the ability to purchase them. And again, if you do have pets, you also want to make sure you cover their needs as well. We're going to talk about a go bag. Some people call them disaster kits. The military calls them bug out kits, a bug out bag. Essentially, it's a bag or a kit. It could be something as small as a shaving kit that you have in the glove box of your car, or a backpack. And it should really be tailored to your particular needs and the things that you think are important. A crank radio, it's a good idea to have. Batteries and flashlights. If you have medications, if you have items that are important for you, a hearing aid, if you have glasses like myself, you want to put maybe a spare inside that bag. Also, when you're thinking of food, I know it's kind of similar, but not exactly the same. The go bags are quick, you can grab it in a rush. The emergency supply kits, whether at work or at home, can be as big as a 50-gallon container. So it really, you got to determine your needs and where you live and how big of a supply kit that you can be able to incorporate in your home or your workplace. Again, mentioned before, it doesn't necessarily happen at home. It could be at work. It could be at school. For those of you that are still able to go to school, it could be in your car en route somewhere. So it's a good idea to have a couple of them available and already ready for you. I'm going to show you another quick video that's just going to show you items that I have in one of my go bags. Just because I have them doesn't mean you should have them, but it gives you an idea of some of the things that you might want to put in your particular go bag. So now I'm going to talk about your go bag. This is my particular go bag.
Everybody should have a go bag for the home, for the workplace, or even in your car.
You guys
This
hearing
particular
video?
one is a go bag that has a MOLLE system, which is the webbing here. As you can see, I have some tools here. I have a multi-tool carabiner. Those are great to have. You never know when you need them. A knife and some trauma shears. And a flashlight here. I have multiple flashlights, but this is one of them. The good thing about this one is this package right here can be removed from my whole bag itself. Some of the things that I include in here, you should always have extra socks, a means of cleaning your hands with a hand sanitizer. Wipes are always a good deal to carry, as well as some markers and pins and a whistle. You never know where you're going to be, so if you have an opportunity that you need to strike a fire for warming or cooking purposes, I have both a lighter and a match, and I also have a flint stick here. Then my other package is, like I said, you got to personalize your bag for what your personal needs are. Some over-the-counter medications, some moist wipes that have sterile additive to them. You never know if you need to plug in something, so you want an extension cord, but you will also want an adapter from a 3-prong to a 2-prong because you don't know what you're connecting. A good thing to always carry is multiple sets of bags. These are Ziploc bags. I have small, medium to large size. And some rope, some paracord in this case, another flashlight. So I'm going to open up the rest of my bag. And again, this is what I have in my bag. You personalize it to your particular needs. Duct tape, it's always a good thing to have. You never know, you can use it for multiple purposes. My medical bag, which we showed earlier, has bandages, some trauma shears inside here as well, sterile elements, and all these different things. It can be as intensive as you want to make it, or you can have just bandages or band-aids in here. Prescription medications for whatever it is you need. If you have some kind of a medical condition, asthma, high blood pressure, you want to make sure that you have other medication. Lip balm, again, another pair of socks. And in my particular bag, I have some thermal underwear that you're in a place that's pretty cold. Zip ties are a good thing to include. Nowadays, we all need to be wearing masks, so I have a couple of masks. A battery to continue charging my cell phone in the event that I run out of power or juice. Some eye drops. Like I mentioned, you want to have flashlights. This is a headlamp, so that if I need to do some work, but I need both my hands free, I can get light once I put this on my forehead. Comfortable shoes. I have a pair of slippers in here, or sandals, but I also have another set of light, comfortable tennis shoes, athletic shoes. Some toiletries. I wear glasses, so it's always a good idea if you need some kind of a, contact lenses, or you're wearing those. I have a spare glasses in a hard case that will protect them. Spare set of car keys. A tourniquet kit for, some kind of a amputation or a blood. Somebody's bleeding and I need to control it. $100 with spare money. You don't know if you're going to need to, make a purchase somewhere and ATMs aren't working. Medical card and also a secondary ATM card. Have it in here, protected in plastic, Ziploc. Some more masks. And some antiseptic wipes. And also some muscle, it's called salon pods for in case you got a cramp or you pulled a muscle of something or something like that. So you need to prepare your particular go bag for your particular needs. The versatility of this particular bag I like because I can take the smaller pouches off. It has the webbing system attached to it, and I can add or delete things as I need. And I have the ability to put it like a backpack or carry it like kind of like a briefcase. So determine what your particular needs are for yourself and your family. Have one at home, should have one in your car, and it's not a bad idea to also have one at work.
Okay, guys, I understand this is a lot of information, but again, I want to reinforce that you can, at your leisure, look at this PowerPoint so that if I'm covering stuff that seems like I'm going a little quick, I apologize, but because of time constraints, that there's so much material here, I just want to make sure that you capture the important stuff, and then again, you can go over it again to reinforce it. So now we're going to transition to the water storage. So it's important that we have means of being able to store water. One of the most reliable and recommended ways is that you purchase commercially bottled water. You want to make sure you keep it in its original container. And if it has an expiration or use by date, keep that in mind. A typically normally active person will drink at least 2 quarts of water every day. Children and nursing mothers may need more than that. There's also things that can factor in. Very hot temperatures will also make it that you need more water during the summer months, especially. On average, you want to make sure you have at least 1 gallon of water per person for cooking and drinking, and that when you do store water in yourself, that you have it in a washed plastic, glass, or ceramic lined container. The water that you do purchase commercially, you can rotate it out every 12 months, but the water that you yourself are putting in containers, change it out every 6 months. A couple of tips. There's ways you can obtain water. For those of you that have a hot water heater, that's actually a source of water that you can obtain. You want to make sure that you turn the power off that's heating that water heater, make sure that it's cool, and open up the drain valve that's shown like in the picture here of the slide. If you're going to drink it, a good investment would be to have some kind of a filtering pitcher that can you can filter it through. If you don't have that, you can use a couple of coffee filters so that you can get the smaller particulates that may potentially be in there. In a pinch, this is a good source of water. You may have a spa at home, you may have a pool or a waterbed. Those are not good places to get water that you would potentially be drinking. However, that is water that you can use for sanitary purposes. So it's a good way to get water, because we're going to need it not just for drinking, for a variety of different reasons. If you want to get more information, there's a website and a phone number where you can get more information for water storage as well as food storage. There's also ways that you might have to purify the water that you have. You can use actually household bleach. It's important that if you do this, that you use bleach that is unscented. The slide will show you the ratio of bleach to water. Depending on the gallons that you're trying to purify, it will depend on maybe being a couple of drops for 1 quart to 5.5 teaspoons of bleach into a 55-gallon water container. We're going to talk now about a fire, because this is another potential situation, whether it's an actual fire or an earthquake that sparks a fire. What we call in the fire service, the fire triangle is composed of 3 elements. You need a fuel source that will burn. You need to have the proper concentration of oxygen that will sustain combustion. And you need a heat source that will heat the fuel to its ignition temperature and continue to sustain combustion. Combustion or fire, that you can almost use them interchangeably, is something that's called rapid oxidation. It's actually like the oxidation of rust on metal or the decaying of wood, but it's rapid. An explosion, it's even more rapidly. So this is another way that you can describe it. Just remember that you need fuel, proper concentration of air, and a heat source to sustain this chemical reaction. We're going to show a video that's going to talk about this, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth about fires in the house.
Oh my God! This guy is trying to make apples flambe for his wife. Watch as he pours the flaming brandy into a hot pan. Very quickly, he's got a disaster on his hands. Nutley, New Jersey Fire Captain David Hamilton says you should never, ever transfer flaming alcohol from one pan to another.
When you go to pour that, the flame is still going to want to come up. So as he's pouring, the flame is still coming out of the pan and going up, even though the liquid's pouring down.
YouTube is loaded with other frightening videos of kitchen cooking catastrophes.
Holy
Cooking with oil can lead to grease fires, which are particularly dangerous. Can you believe this sudden burst of flames is the result of water being thrown on a grease fire?
We're cooking and grease catches fire like this. What do we do?
Worst thing you could do, throw water on it. Here, throw the water on it, watch what happens.
Okay. Oh my gosh.
The greases will float on top of the water goes in, splashes it everywhere, makes a much bigger mess, much bigger fire.
So, what's the proper way of putting out a grease fire?
Easiest thing, put the lid right on top of it.
In the case of a small fire, you can also use baking soda.
Oh wow.
But the safest and most effective way to put out a grease fire is with a fire extinguisher. And Captain Hamilton says, when using a fire extinguisher, the word to remember is pass.
You would pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze, and sweep.
Whatever you do, remember, when it comes to grease fires, water is definitely not the way to go.
Oh my gosh.
So what that video demonstrates is if you use the improper extinguishing agent into the different kind of fire that you're trying to put out, you can get a result like that. What I would have liked Captain Hamilton to include is you want to turn that heat source off. So by putting that lid on there or putting a damp towel, you're basically removing the oxygen to sustain that fire. So you've disrupted that chemical reaction. Just like what he did, put that lid on there. Next thing you need to do is shut that heat source off, if it's safe to do so. Maybe a situation that gets out of hand quickly, get out, call 911. Don't try to, get in a situation that you might hurt yourself or maybe make that fire worse. But it brings to point what's really important, that you need to have the proper method of extinguishing that fire. So now we're going to go and show that there's 5 classes of fire, and they're going to be broken down into class A, B, C, D, and K fire. So class A fire is what we deem ordinary combustibles. It could be wood, plastic, fiber, fabric. It could be rubber. So those are what we call ordinary combustibles. A class B fire would be flammable and combustible liquids such as gasoline and diesel, or paint thinner, stuff like that. A class C fire would be energized electrical equipment. It could be power tools. It could be your computer, your television, your refrigerator. A class D fire is combustible metals. Yes, metals can combust. For example, magnesium and aluminum can combust and they can burn. And if you put water on those, you're going to get an explosive reaction similar to what you saw with that oil pan fire. And the last one is a class K fire. Those are cooking type fires like what you saw in that video. And those will require specific extinguishing agent. So now what I'm showing you here is you're going to see the different classes, but the symbols for each class. For in class A, ordinary combustible, you're going to have a green triangle. A class B fire would be a red square. Class C fire would be a blue circle. Class D, combustible metals, is going to be a yellow star. And the class K is the K in a hexagon shape, usually in black. You want to make sure that you're using the proper extinguisher for the proper fire. Carbon dioxide, the extinguisher that we see here, would be appropriate for an electrical, a Class C fire, or for potentially a Class B fire. Obviously, a Class K fire you want to use in the kitchen, and especially commercial kitchens. They not only have these extinguishers, but they have a hood system that will have the Class K element in there to extinguish a potential grease or fire in the kitchen setting. The extinguisher we recommend the most is the multi-purpose extinguisher. The reason it's called that is it basically a dry chemical extinguisher that can extinguish a Class A, Class B, or a Class C fire. And again, there is water extinguishers, but those really are only for a Class A fire. Things to remember, like we saw, we don't want to put any water on any Class B or K fire. Absolutely don't want to do that. Same with the Class C fire, energized electrical equipment and water, bad mix. We don't want to do that. However, if there is no electrical current running through that energized equipment, it now converts to a Class A fire. Plastics and and maybe some other components of that computer. If there's no electricity running to it, it becomes a Class A fire. But when in doubt, treat it like it has power in it. You don't want to use water and electricity. That's not a good situation. You want to be aware of any potential hazards during any kind of energized electrical equipment fire. Another quick video that's going to kind of just reiterate everything we covered. That's through FEMA.
C. Alert! Before using a fire extinguisher, ensure that someone notifies the fire department, alerts others about the fire, begins evacuating others from the premises. Fire extinguishers are for controlling small fires before they have a chance to spread. Before using one, make sure that you have a clear escape, you are familiar with the operating instructions of the fire extinguisher, and that the fire extinguisher you have is suitable for the fire you're facing. Before using the extinguisher on a fire, look at the fire class symbols on the front label to make sure the extinguisher you have is suitable for the type of fire you're facing. The most common classes of fires are A, B, C, and K. Class A fires involve common combustibles like wood, paper, and tires. Class B fires involve flammable liquids like gasoline and petroleum oil. Class C ratings involve energized equipment or things that are plugged in, like appliances, computers, televisions, and electric machinery. Class K fires involve cooking oils and greases, like vegetable fats. Once you've determined that the extinguisher is the correct type for the hazard, proceed to operate the extinguisher using the pass technique to control and extinguish the fire. First, hold the extinguisher upright and pull the pin. Next, stand 8 to 10 feet from the fire and aim the nozzle at the base of the fire. Do not get too close or aim the nozzle too high. Once the nozzle is aimed at the base of the fire, squeeze the levers together to begin discharge of the fire extinguishing agent. Maintain your distance from the fire and sweep the nozzle from side to side, sweeping 3 to 6 inches beyond the right and left edges of the fire. Discharge the extinguisher until contents are exhausted to prevent reignition. Move around the fire to confirm it is completely extinguished. Your quick action can save lives and protect property. Using the fire extinguisher properly.
Okay, just that video was really a quick reference. You want to make sure that you get 911 rolling. Fire extinguishers are really used to put what's beginning to be a small fire and prevent it from becoming a large one. Never put yourself in a situation where you don't have an escape route. So if you're trying to extinguish a fire, if it goes bad, you need to have a way and a means to get out quickly that doesn't put you running through that portion of the fire. If you're unsure, if you have the proper extinguisher, you could just close the door. By closing the door in the room, you could prevent that fire from spreading throughout the house and becoming even bigger than what it is. So just things to keep aware. But in a situation, it's really important that we understand all these elements before we commit ourselves and put ourselves in a position where we might be injured or worse. I talked about a multi-purpose extinguisher. The importance of having one with a hose is that it gives you the opportunity to control the element that is being propulsed out of the extinguisher. It gives you an ability to not be so close. When you saw that video with Captain Hamilton, they used a little snub nose nozzle. I don't really recommend those because you are very limited and you really need to get closer. You have less control. But what you want to look at is when you're purchasing this extinguisher, we recommend a 2A 10BC. What those numbers really mean is that's the minimum size of a fire extinguisher you want to get. But you also want to make sure it's got a UL rating. Underwriter Laboratories, nonprofit laboratory that will test different products. And when they run through them, they're proven to be safe. And that rating right there will tell you that it's a quality product. If you're going to make an investment in that or any other item, such as a smoke alarm, you want to make sure that it has a UL rating on there. Again, just a real recap with regards to extinguishers. You want to make sure you get 911 rolling. If you're outside, you want to make sure that you have the wind to your back. You don't want that dry powder from a dry chemical extinguisher to be blowing into your face, or let alone that fire being blown in your direction. You want to make sure that you're using all the elements of that extinguisher to its full capability, and the wind can actually help you get and spread some of that element out. When you're fighting a Class A fire, you want to make sure you aim it at the base of the fire, and then you move it around until the fire is out or extinguished. Similar to that would be a Class B fire, but basically in a Class B fire, that element of the extinguisher is going to cover or put a covering over so that it's preventing the oxygen from becoming that, fulfilling that fire triangle that we spoke about earlier. Remember, you want to use the proper extinguisher for the proper type of fire. Another thing you want to make sure you have is a smoke alarm. When you do purchase one, again, remember you want to get one with a UL rating. You want to keep the instructions because it's going to tell you maintenance and times that you should test it. We recommend you test them once a month. Some of the new ones have a battery life of 10 years. If you hear that it's chirping, it's one of those that is a 10-year battery life. The chirping tells you that it's low. It's time to invest in a new one. If you have some of those older smoke alarms, you want to change the battery at least once. I recommend you change it twice. Whenever daylight savings time comes around, change the battery. And when that time is going to be converted back over, change it again. That way you can assure yourself that that has a good working battery. You want to make sure that you replace your smoke alarm if it's 10 years or older. And some of these systems and some of these alarms are combination smoke alarm and carbon monoxide alarm. So do your homework and invest in what works best for you. This slide right here is telling you where you can place them. You want to place them in all the bedrooms, all the living areas, hallways. You want to place them up high, no closer than 4 inches to the vertical wall. Look at the manufacturer's recommendations, but this slide gives you a good idea where you can place them. I don't recommend you put them in your kitchen. Some people do, but you know that thing can be getting triggered depending how sensitive a system you actually purchase. Now we're going to transition into potentially wildland fires. Some of you may live in the wildland interface, especially in Southern California. That's something that we need to be really aware of. When you see red flag weather conditions or red flag weather warning, it's telling you that the humidity is at 15% or lower, and that the winds can be sustained at 25 miles per hour or greater. So that means that when they're calling the red flag warning or red flag alert, that there's a high potential for a fire to start in those areas. Things you can do to prepare yourself when you live in those areas, or you know there's a fire in the immediate community or somewhere nearby. Park your cars facing out. Good idea to disconnect your garage door. In the event these power lines get burned down, you don't have a means to get your door open if you need to evacuate quickly. By disconnecting your garage door, you can manually lift it up and get yourself out. You want to make sure you put important items like records and passports, stuff like that. If you have pets, maybe have a leash and a pet carrier ready. Inside your home, before you leave, if you're told to evacuate, pull the drapes and any window coverings away, because the radiant heat can actually ignite those items inside your home, especially some of these light sheer curtains that some of us have in our homes. Any interior doors you want to close. You also want to make sure all your windows or doors are closed. Keep the lights on, and any furniture that's in proximity to windows, try to move it to the center of your room. On the exterior of your house, there's things that you can do. If you have dry leaves on your roof or in proximity to the base of your house, you want to remove those elements. You want to make sure that you have your landscape clean and clear from any dry material or dead material. Try to space your shrubs distances away. When we go to homes and they're in proximity to a fire, certain areas are required to maintain their brush clearance. So a good thing to do if you have a lot of this shrubbery in proximity to each other, maybe remove some of it so you don't have them spreading right next to the other one. You want to also limit certain specimens of trees and shrubs. The crowns of trees, you want to make sure you prune them away from your house. Keep them at least 10 feet away from all your chimneys. And areas that we consider red flag or high fire hazard zone areas, you want to maintain your brush clearance. Keep clean at least 200 perimeter around the base of your home. And you also want to make sure that there's certain trees and shrubs that are highly flammable, like eucalyptus, palms, and pines. So all this is a lot of material, guys. I understand that I kind of rushed through some of it, but you will have access to other materials that will cover in detail how you can help prepare your home on the outside as well as on the inside.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
That's my Apple phone. So this is the end of this particular PowerPoint regarding class 2. We're gonna transition to Mary, and she's gonna give you some more information.
Awesome, thank you so much, Albert. So don't go anywhere yet. We have a few exciting things coming up. We're gonna hop into some breakout rooms real quick. And when we come back from that, we're gonna share some resources and do some raffles of some of the gear that you may have seen in our classes that we have done. And so we're gonna raffle some of it off, and then we're gonna have a time of Q&A. If you wanna stay, you're always welcome. So for our breakout room, you're gonna be in a group 2 to 3 people and just have this one question. You've learned and seen so much in this 1 hour. What is one thing, 1 or 2 things that you can do this week to put into action? All right, so you got your question. What's 1 or 2 things you can do this week? All right, so we're just gonna have a few minutes in the breakout, then we're gonna come back for our next pieces. It looks like we have everyone back or almost back. So that was a quick rapid fire of what's one thing you're gonna do this week. And so we're gonna do some raffles now, and I'm gonna put in the chat a great resource that you can connect to, and it's epicenter.org/acts of mercy. And on this page, you'll be able to find videos to our YouTube channel that we have all these different videos that you've watched. You're like, wow, that's amazing, all these go bag items. Well, there's on that website page, there's a list of go bag items that you can find on Amazon or Home Depot and different places. And you'll find videos that you can watch and pause and write down and implement, and then keep watching the video. And so feel free to even put questions through that. I'll give you my email if you have any questions to be able to connect. And you'll also see events. We have 3 more of these classes in our series together. So what some of you have long awaited for, our raffle time. So in our time of breakout, I've written down all your names in this bowl and folded them up, all right? So this is how it's gonna work. We have, as you can see, Albert and Pia Hugo are holding up some incredible prizes. If you are local in the area, you'll be able to pick them up at the Hugo home in the Locker Center. Or if you're not local in driving distance, we have some generous people who are going to mail it to you. And so, Albert or Pia, can you tell us what our first prize is for our first raffle winner?
We're going to have a steel, anchoring system for furniture of your house.
Awesome. So that way, in case of an earthquake, furniture doesn't fall over, it's anchored to the wall. So our raffle winner for this prize is, let's see, Kimberly.
Yay! All right, Kimberly. This has your name on it now, Kimberly.
What's next? What's our next item?
It's a Quake Hold. So if you have some decorative items that you don't want falling over, it's kind of like a little putty that will hold them or anchor them to a shelf or wherever it is you choose to place them.
Awesome. All right, our next raffle winner is... I picked up two, so I got to redo it. They're so small, they all stuck together. All right, here we go. Here's one. It is the Wong family. Yay!
Wong family.
Awesome. All right, what's our next one? I think we have 3 more prizes.
We have 3 of these emergency gas shut-off valves. So 3 of these.
Awesome. So 1 for each prize. He's a raffle winner. All right, so our first wrench is going to Fiona.
Yay, Fiona.
Yay. Awesome. Sweet. All right, our next wrench is going to Lisa Floyd.
Yay, Lisa.
Woo-hoo. All right, and our final wrench, and we're gonna have raffles each class, so you won't wanna miss it, all right? And our raffles will continue to be gear that you see that we're learning about. Our last prize goes to Rachel.
Yay, Rachel.
Awesome, so cool. All right, well, thank you all so much for joining. You can go to our Epicenter website, find all the resources. We're going to be uploading our PowerPoint from today and the recording shortly. And so if you have time, you're welcome to stick around for some Q&A. But if not, have a blessed day.
Bye, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, you guys. It was awesome. So glad I had a chance to
Thank you, Linda.
I've missed you.
Yeah, I miss you too.
Awesome. Well, for those who are here for some Q&A time, and we're recording our Q&A so that it can be accessible to others later. Couple questions, Albert. Will the multi-purpose extinguisher ABC put out a grease fire in the kitchen?
Yes. Usually commercial kitchens use different types of cooking oils, high saturated fats, which burn hotter, faster, and more intense. So a multi-purpose extinguisher basically is going to put a covering over it to remove the air component of the fire triangle so that it can't continue to sustain combustion. However, I would be leery of using that if you have a commercial kitchen. Invest in a K extinguisher if that be the case. But a regular cooking stuff, it can serve as well.
Awesome. So for purchasing extinguishers, which extinguishers would you recommend someone to purchase for their home?
Okay, so what I like about the multi-purpose extinguisher, the 2A 10BC, that's the size that I recommend. That one, it serves so many multiple functions. However, if you have a lot of expensive computer equipment, these aren't cheap, but CO2 carbon dioxide extinguisher would be the more appropriate, because the moment you do use a multi-purpose extinguisher, you're going to get all that powder, not just on the place where you're putting that fire out, but it's going to spread all over. So when those extinguishing agents are activated, it does take a while. I mean, you want to prevent that fire from causing that damage, but it does take a while for cleaning up. So depending on what your reasons for having the extinguisher, in most cases in the home, 2A 10 BC multiple function extinguisher is the one to go. But if you have a lot of high expensive electrical components and equipment, I would invest in a carbon dioxide extinguisher.
One more question on the extinguishers. How often do you have to check to see if they expire?
Okay, good. So when we inspect businesses, and we do annually, by law, any commercial occupancy has to have their extinguisher serviced. So every year they either buy new ones or they have a service come over. They have to go through a series of tests, because just because that needle says that it's in the green doesn't necessarily mean that it actually has the power inside of it, the extinguishing agent that propels the elements out. If you're buying them, I would, if you have one that's a few years old, I wouldn't tell you to get rid of it, keep it, but invest in another one. Depending on where you go, they can range from anywhere to $30 to $60. Again, be careful, buyer beware, like in anything else. If you invest in one that doesn't have a UL rating, there's other ratings that are good. I'd have to look to see which ones they are, but don't purchase something that doesn't have some kind of a rating that attests to the ability and the dependability of that particular extinguisher or smoke alarm.
Awesome. One comment, not a question, but a comment for in your go bag, putting money that has small denominations, because with electricity out, merchants cannot give you change. And so that wise word came from Dennis.
Yep, yep, absolutely.
I think Lisa had a question.
How much water should we store?
Okay, so obviously some of us are limited. We live in apartment buildings, townhomes. So the ability to have a 50-gallon barrel is probably not likely. Just got to remember, the rule of thumb is 1 gallon of water per person per day. That's just a general rule. Depending on the size of your family and the amount of people that that are there and their needs. Again, if you have a nursing mom, she's gonna need more water than a typical person. So try to rule of thumb 3 to 10 days worth of water. 5 people in the house. You're looking for 5 gallons every day, so you're looking at 15 gallons at least for 3 days.
And Lisa, you mentioned something about 3 months. Do you want to expand a little bit on that part of the question?
Oh, I just meant, how many months should we plan for right now? Like, how many days do you think it's good to plan for storing food and water? I mean, we think about what happened in Texas. Wasn't it like 2 weeks almost for some people?
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, what do you think right now would be a wise choice in storing supplies? Because I'm thinking of reorganizing the house so I can store more food and water. And then they say you should always plan to help your neighbor too. So yeah, I just want to hear your thoughts on that.
I personally, I would do at least 10 days and maybe 2 weeks. And that's only because your neighbors, especially if you're close to your neighbors, they're going to know you're one of those people that are prepared. They're going to be knocking on your door, and we can't turn them away. So I have 3 30-gallon barrels in my storage shed, and I have multiple filtration, the pure water thing that I can use. And I try to keep watered bottle, here, but Andrew drinks at least 1.5 gallons every day.
Yeah.
So as much as I store it, it doesn't seem to last because he's here living with us now. But yeah, if you happen to have the flexibility in your house and you have the room, those barrels come in 50-gallon configurations. Also invest in a pump. A good pump, because a hand pump, because you really can't depend on electricity. So you want to have one, keep it inside. I have one, and it's in our storage inside by the pantry. The 330-gallon barrels we have are in the back of the house in a storage shed. They're properly sealed and everything, but I have to rotate those out like at least every 6 months, because they might be good when I put them in, and I won't have that water go to waste. I'll pump it out, and we'll water the numerous plants that Pia has around the house. So yeah, but yeah, if you have the ability, Lisa, to purchase some of those barrels, they're a good investment. And I did have a point of contact, Mandy Wong from Rosemead, the Emergency Preparedness Coordinator, who I've taught numerous classes with. She had a contact.
Okay, I have to figure out how to clean it. Okay, sorry. Sorry.
Yeah, you could. There's also tablets that you can put inside that will clean them, and you could also put the bleach ratios that we put up on the website. Those things are kind of hard to clean, and so yeah, I guess you could scrub them and stuff, but there's other ways of doing it which doesn't entail you spending an hour or so cleaning them out. But that's why you want to make sure that you incorporate the bleach for those tablets so that they remain fairly clean. Again, I'll also recommend, if you're getting that water out, you filter it again, and if you can, boil it, but in a pinch, if you need to drink that water, you may not have access to clean water for a while.